Whether it was the way that I spoke, the music I listened to, or the clothes that I wore, when I was growing up, I remember constantly hearing how I wasn't black enough. And as a kid, I honestly believed that there was a standard way for black people to behave or think, and any behavior outside of that box would grant you the unfortunate label of trying to act white. But what does that even mean? What is white behavior compared to black behavior? And most importantly, who's in charge of creating these rules? Black community leaders? Or better yet, why do I need someone to speak for me? Do other communities have leaders? And if so, who elects them? Despite having all of these questions, as a kid, I still had no desire to fit in, so losing my black card never fazed me. But as an adult, I now understand how self-limiting this way of thinking can be, because it suggests that everything from your self-expression down to your personal beliefs are already mapped out for you by a third party. And as this cycle continues with gatekeeping blackness, it poses the question, do issues within black culture truly stem from the white man system? Or is it possible that a lot of problems are self-inflicted by stripping people of their ability to think and thrive as an individual? But before we get into that, I just want to thank No System for sponsoring today's video. No System creates unique streetwear with an art school vibe and punk rock attitude. Their latest collection highlights an alternate universe where mid-century free market economists ended up becoming 1970s punks instead. Like my boy Tom Sowell, who knows a thing or two about being labeled a sellout just for thinking differently. So if you're someone that questions everything or goes against the grain like I do, head over to nosysnos.com and use code Gothix to save 20% off your order. Back to the show. So while I thought that black gatekeeping was exclusive to my childhood, I can see that in 2021, not much has changed. You have to vote for that party because it's who black people vote for. You have to support this movement because it's a movement for black people. But what these individuals fail to realize is that this line of thinking will never help the advancement of black people because it sets the expectation that you'll only be accepted if you change yourself for others. Kinda sounds like a cult. Being a social commentator on YouTube has really opened up my eyes to how much of an issue this really is. Since there's the expectation for black people to behave in a certain way, the mainstream media tends to overlook or even demonize those who think differently. For example, a few months ago, I was selected to appear in a national mainstream magazine. That was until they scrapped my interview after they realized I wasn't really providing the typical answers that they would expect after asking a black woman about representation in the creative space. No, I don't think it's harder for a black person to succeed as a content creator because there are so many amazing black creators whose successes are constantly overlooked because they're not making the correct type of content that a black creator is supposed to make. I mean, you guys have seen my comment section, but you know what? Let's hear what another problematic black creator has to say. Take it away, Leon.
Ever since I started doing YouTube, I've always run into people who like to send long paragraphs about their feelings, thinking that that's going to discredit anything that I'm talking about. I'm dealing with individuals who only watch 5 to 10 seconds of my videos or just read the title and automatically get in their feelings because what I'm talking about isn't what they talk about in their safe spaces. And every single time I would have to read one of these comments, one of the things that I would normally see is how I'm bootlicking or how I'm catering to a white audience or how I'm tearing down the black community with my videos. And so the general question that I have started to ask is that what videos cater to a black audience? And before you would answer that, I would also need you to understand how low you think of black people, because what does it say about what you think about what black people are supposed to watch? You think black people are too stupid to sit here and actually give their own points about various things that are happening on social media and in the current climate of society? Do you think black people are too stupid to actually sit down and articulate proper points other than what you talk about in your college classrooms? What is it that you're trying to gain by telling me that I'm catering to a white audience? You're not making black people look superb here. You're making black people look like idiots. If you're going to tell me that I need to stick to making gaming content or doing hair tutorials or trying on clothes, that lets me know how low you think of black people. That lets me know that you don't want to have black people in these certain discussions. That means you want to have black people sitting down and shutting up because you have this idea that anything that I would put out, anything that other people would put out that actually provides diversity of thought, that is not something black people are supposed to watch. They're supposed to watch things that make them feel good in the moment. All last year, white people were told to do one thing and one thing only. Shut up and listen to black people, because you were convinced that every single thing you do in your life, because you're white, is somehow better than the black person who is also next to you. And I'm sorry to break it to every white person watching this, but that is desperately not true. Just because you got convinced by a bunch of 20-year-old college students that you are a problem just because your skin is a problem to them doesn't mean you're a bad person. None of you have any power to oppress any single person. None of you have power to hold back anyone unless you're actively trying to do it. Many of these individuals who are complaining at you to listen to them are desperately trying to get you to realize that they suck, but they don't want to acknowledge that, because accountability is something most people struggle with. And what bothers me about being told to shut up and listen is that you did take the time to shut up and listen, but you only listened to a certain group. You listened to a bunch of people that are playing victim. You listen to a bunch of people who don't get up off their own ass and actually put in the time to do something. You listen to a bunch of people who really want you to understand that being white is a bad thing. Instead, you took all of that and you actually believe that, and anytime you interact with someone like me, like Gothix, like Young Ripper, like Abba and Preach, you sit there and you want to demonize them. You claim that we're not black enough, or if for some people who are also black who want to claim that if your life doesn't suck because you're black, you're heavily insulated. It's funny how these people have this way of thinking and don't want to open their minds to the fact that, not every black person is oppressed. Not every black person is fighting against the white person to be succeeding in life. We're actually taking the time to hone our crafts and actually take the time to get better at what we're doing, not bitching about how some white person we don't even know has a better opportunity than us. There are ways we could actually come together and have conversations, and it's called diversity of thought. Stop sitting here and shunning people just because they don't have the same experiences as you. Actually take the time to have a conversation with them, because if you're not going to do that, guess what? You're a hypocrite, and on some level, you might be a white supremacist.
This is why I laugh at the idea of black representation, because it's clear that these types of folks don't actually care about representation. What they do care about is platforming a specific black person with a specific worldview. So when virtuous BLM supporters kept shouting, "Listen to black voices, amplify black voices," trust me when I say they were not talking about me. But the scary thing about all of this is when you shun black people who think differently, you also rob them of their individuality. And if you have groups that operate as a collective, their behavior becomes easier to predict. And if you can predict how a group of people are going to react, they're easier to herd in a specific direction. So for example, when I usually see a black person emotionally invested in any of the cases surrounding Black Lives Matter, I find that more often than not, these same folks will refer to themselves as part of a collective rather than an individual. They'll say things like, "We're tired of being killed," or "We're oppressed." What this can be described as is de-individuation, which occurs when a person's identity within a group overrides their own identity and self-awareness. This can lead to impulsive and maybe even violent behavior, or more specifically, mob mentality, like we saw with the peaceful protests of 2020. This happens because de-individuation tends to prevent diversity of thought, so people in groups often feel less individually responsible for their actions, like the recent shooting of Ma'Khia Bryant or the racist remarks directed at Senator Tim Scott. Yes, Ma'Khia's shooting was unfortunate, but her death was a result of bad decisions and not white supremacy. And while some may dislike Senator Tim Scott's opinions regarding racism in America, guess what? Calling him racist terms will never help you achieve your utopian vision of ending racism. See, when you make excuses for bad or even criminal behavior, it's time to do some self-analyzing. If you understand right from wrong, then you should understand right from wrong. If you find that your moral values are changing depending on who you align yourself with, then that might be a sign that that group isn't a positive influence on your life. Just a side note, the phenomenon of de-individuation can also be found in other groups throughout history, like Nazis during the Holocaust. Did you ever wonder how they were able to justify so many atrocities that they knew were wrong? Well, propaganda for one, but losing their self-awareness and individuality was another huge factor. But going back to the focal point of this video, my experiences as a child taught me invaluable lessons as an adult. And since I had no desire to fit in as a kid, I never developed an obsession with my race because changing myself to appease other people simply didn't interest me. And since I don't find any value in my skin color as an adult, I'm more resistant to race-baiting tactics like this idea I'm supposed to get behind Black Lives Matter just because I'm black, or whenever someone announces the first black whatever, I don't care because that information tells me nothing about a person's personality, ambitions, or values. The unfortunate reality is that calls to end racism will never be taken seriously as long as society continues to believe that black people are intended to behave and think in a certain way. And that true black empowerment comes from celebrating individuality and not encouraging the self-limiting belief that your life experience is already mapped out because of your skin color. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content like this. Also, be sure to sign up for my mailing list so we can stay connected. My name is Gothix, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!